and the edge of the galaxy, the planet Lithera, burned. Its skies were dark with smoke and fire, torn apart by swarms of raiders that moved like shadows with teeth. Cities that had once glittered with life were now nothing but ruins. Buildings had collapsed, their walls broken, streets littered with debris. The people of Lithera ran through the chaos, some screaming, some silent, but all of them scared. Their homes, their families, their lives, they were slipping through their fingers like sand. The Litherans were not weak. They had survived storms, plagues, and wars before. They were clever, strong, and disciplined. But this enemy was different. The raiders were relentless, bioengineered creatures, part machine, part living nightmare. Every attack was precise. Every strike calculated to destroy not just the city but the spirit of its people. Litherans fought back with courage, but their weapons, their armies, their very strength, it was not enough. Desperation began to creep into the hearts of the Litherans. Their leaders called the Galactic Council, the shining network of civilizations sworn to protect all life. They sent messages loud and urgent, asking for fleets, for soldiers, for help. They begged for mercy, for intervention. But the universe answered only with silence. Days passed. Weeks. Each unanswered call cut deeper than the raiders' weapons. Kale, a young Litheran officer, watched the destruction from a high ridge above the city. He had seen death before, but not like this. Children ran through burning streets, their cries piercing the smoke. Families huddled in shattered buildings, praying for a miracle that did not come. Kale's chest ached with helplessness. He had trained for war, studied strategy, learned to fight with honor. But what honor could there be when the universe itself had turned away? Lithera's leaders convened in hidden bunkers, their faces pale, their voices shaking. "We have asked for aid," one counselor said. "We are abandoned. The galaxy has left us to die." Another shook his head. "We cannot survive alone. The raiders are too strong, too many. Our people will fall." Kale clenched his fists. He could feel the fear around him like a living thing, spreading to everyone in the room. But deep in his heart, a stubborn spark refused to die. He would not give up. He could not while his people still had breath. Then a new signal appeared. It was different from anything the Council or the Litherans had seen before. It was jagged, raw, almost violent in its energy, but clear in its purpose. A voice came through the comms, speaking in strange tones but simple words. "We heard your call. We are coming." No one recognized the source. It was not from the Council, not from any known ally. The sensor readings were strange, almost dangerous. Some whispered it was a myth, the humans. Stories had been told of them, of worlds so hostile that no creature could survive, yet humans thrived. They were called Deathworlders, capable of surviving extremes no one else could imagine. Radiation, toxic atmospheres, predatory beasts, unending storms. Humans had endured them all. Kale felt a mix of relief and fear. Humans were not known for diplomacy. They were fierce, unpredictable, and terrifying. Yet here they were, answering a desperate plea that the rest of the galaxy had ignored. Days later, massive ships appeared on the horizon, black and jagged, moving through Lithera's atmosphere like hunting predators. Their weapons glinted with a deadly promise. Soldiers disembarked, tall, scarred, and wearing armor that seemed alive. They carried rifles, blades, and machines built to kill with perfection. Every movement they made was precise, coordinated, like a single organism rather than many individuals. Kale watched, frozen. These were no ordinary allies. These were humans, the Deathworlders. If they fought for Lithera, they would not hold back. They would not negotiate. They would not stop until the raiders were destroyed or every soldier was dead. And then the human commander stepped forward. His voice was low but firm. "We heard your call. We will fight for your world." The words were simple, but Kale felt them like a hammer in his chest. Relief and fear battled inside him. Hope was dangerous, it could be crushed so easily. And yet watching the humans, he realized that maybe this hope was different. Maybe, just maybe, his world had a chance. The first human strike was swift and devastating. They moved silently through the forests and cities, hunting the raiders like predators, leaving survivors alive only to protect them. Kale and his soldiers followed, learning, adapting, but always watching. Each kill, each maneuver was a lesson in survival, and each moment a reminder. The humans were not here to play hero. They were here to win. As the sun set over the ruined city, Kale looked at the human forces and whispered almost to himself, "The galaxy left us, but maybe, Just maybe, humanity will not. The humans did not wait. Within hours of landing, they moved through Lithera's ruined cities and forests with a speed and precision that made the Litherans' hearts pound. They were not like any soldiers Kale had ever seen. Their armor was dark, almost alive, fitted to each body as if it grew from their skin. Their weapons were strange, rifles that hummed with energy, blades that glowed with a deadly light. Every movement was calculated, every decision sharp. Kale watched from a ridge, his heart hammering. The humans did not speak much. They communicated with gestures, signals, and sharp commands, and yet their silence was terrifying. There was no hesitation in their eyes, no fear. Only purpose. Only action. One of the humans moved through the wreckage of a Litheran city, lifting debris with brute strength to save a trapped civilian. Another crouched in the shadows, setting traps that snapped shut with mechanical precision, capturing raiders without a single friendly casualty. Kale realized that these humans were not just soldiers. They were survival incarnate. The Litherans tried to keep up. They followed the humans into ambushes, into ruined buildings, into the forests where the raiders had made their nests. The humans taught without words. They showed Kale how to move quietly, how to read the environment, how to predict the enemy's moves. Each day, Kale learned more. His soldiers grew stronger, faster, smarter because the humans demanded it. Not out of cruelty, but necessity. Kale's first encounter with a human commander was unforgettable. The man was tall, his face scarred from battles that Kale could not imagine. His voice was low and calm. "You will survive if you follow. You will survive if you fight as we fight. But hesitation will kill you faster than the enemy." Kyle swallowed hard. There was a strange honesty in that tone. No false encouragement, no promises of glory. Only the truth, survive or die. He nodded. Somehow he trusted these humans even though fear twisted in his stomach. The humans moved like predators. At night, when the raiders struck with venomous beasts and flying drones, the humans were everywhere. They ambushed the enemy, cutting through swarms that should have overwhelmed them, and yet they also protected the Litherans, guiding civilians to safety, dragging the wounded from streets strewn with fire. Kale saw them suffer too. Wounds that would kill a normal soldier, patched up quickly, and yet they kept moving forward, unstoppable. One evening, Kale watched a human medic tending to civilians in the middle of a battle-scarred square. The medic's hands were bloody, his face tired, but he worked tirelessly, comforting frightened children and patching the wounded. Kyle approached him, almost afraid to speak. "Why do you risk so much?" "We are strangers," he asked. The medic looked up, exhaustion in his eyes. "Because someone has to. Because we know what it is like when no one comes." Kale's chest tightened. That simple sentence carried more weight than any council decree, more than any fleet of ships. The humans did not act for fame or politics. They acted because it was right, because survival for them meant protecting life, even if it meant giving their own. Over the following days, the humans led raids on raider camps, freeing prisoners and destroying weapons. They moved like shadows, striking from places the Litherans would never dare enter. Kale followed, learning the subtle signals, the quiet steps, the ways to survive where death waited at every corner. He began to understand what the legends meant. Humans were forged in Deathworlds. They thrived where life itself seemed impossible. The Litherans began to change. Soldiers who had once hesitated now acted with confidence. Civilians, inspired by the humans' courage, began to fight back, setting traps, defending homes. Kale saw a flicker of hope in the eyes of his people for the first time in weeks. The humans had not just come to fight, they had come to teach. One night, as the wind howled through a ruined city, Kale stood beside the human commander on a high ridge overlooking the battlefield. The commander's eyes scanned the horizon, calm and sharp. "You will survive," he said again. "Not because the galaxy helps, but because you choose to. Do not waste this chance." Kale nodded, a mixture of fear and determination churning inside him. The humans were different, terrifying, and relentless, but with them the Litherans had a chance. Maybe the galaxy had abandoned them, but these humans had arrived. And as Kale watched the Deathworlders disappear into the darkness, hunting, saving, fighting, he realized a truth he could not yet fully grasp. The humans did not come to negotiate or ask for gratitude. They came to do what was necessary. They came to survive and to make others survive with them. For the first time in weeks, Kale felt a flicker of hope. The galaxy may have turned its back, but humanity had not. And sometimes he thought that was enough. Days passed and Lithera began to see small victories. The humans, with their relentless precision, had driven many raiders from the forests and cities. But the real battle, Cale realized, was not just about killing enemies. It was about learning to survive in a world that had turned against them. The humans moved like shadows, blending with the ruins and forests. Cale watched them silently, taking notes in his mind. They taught without words, using gestures, positioning, and quiet commands. One day, Cale followed a group into the toxic jungles outside the city. The air burned with poisonous spores and monstrous predators lurked in the thick mist. Most Litherans would never dare enter. A human soldier gestured for Cale to crouch. Then, without speaking, he demonstrated how to read the movement of the forest, how a broken branch could indicate a predator's path, how a shadow could hide death. Cale's heart raced, but he followed. Slowly, painfully, he began to understand. These humans were not just fighters, they were survivors. Over time, Cale saw the humans' methods extend beyond battle. They taught Litherans to repair weapons in the field, to build shelters that could resist storms and bio-attacks, and to ration food and water during long sieges. Even more, they taught the Litherans how to endure fear itself. Cale learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in spite of it. One evening, Cale found himself beside a human medic, watching her tend to a group of civilians who had been trapped in a raider attack. She moved quickly, quietly treating burns, broken bones, and frightened hearts alike. Cale asked, "Why do you care so much?" "You don't know them." The medic paused, her hands steady despite exhaustion. "Because someone has to," she said simply. "And because we remember what it feels like when no one comes." Cale felt a strange warmth spread through him. These humans had no obligation to Lithera, no duty to risk their lives, and yet they had chosen to fight for strangers. There was a lesson here deeper than tactics or weapons. It was about what it meant to care enough to act. The humans were harsh teachers. Mistakes were punished not with cruelty but with harsh correction. One Litheran soldier fell into a trap they had set too early. A human dragged him out just in time, bloodied but alive. Later, the commander spoke to Cale. "Fear kills faster than any enemy. Teach your people to move with eyes wide open." Mistakes cost lives. Cale began to teach others as well. With the humans guiding him, he showed Litherans how to lay traps in the jungles, how to move silently through the forests, and how to anticipate enemy attacks. Slowly, their confidence grew. They still feared the raiders, but fear no longer paralyzed them. It sharpened them. One night, after a long day of teaching and fighting, Cale sat with a human soldier near the remains of a destroyed raider camp. The soldier looked at him and said, "You have strength. You just need to see it in yourself." Cale stared at the smoldering ruins. He had always thought his people were weak, abandoned, and lost. But now he saw something else: courage, resilience, and the spark of hope that the humans had ignited. He realized that survival was not just about weapons or numbers. It was about heart and determination. Over the following weeks, the Litherans began to change. Soldiers moved faster, civilians hid smarter, and even the children learned to recognize danger. The humans did not hold back. They pushed the Litherans to their limits, forcing them to think, to act, and to survive. And each time they succeeded, Cale saw pride grow in their eyes. But Cale also began to see the cost of human survival. Every fight left the Deathworlders scarred, bleeding and exhausted. Yet they never stopped. Each wound was patched, each fatigue ignored because they were driven by something greater than themselves. And Cale began to understand. This was the essence of humanity, facing impossible odds, enduring unimaginable pain, and still choosing to protect others. One night, under the twin moons of Lithera, Cale stood beside a human commander, looking out over the forests where the next battle would soon take place. "Your people have hope now," the commander said quietly. "Do not waste it. Fight, survive, and protect what matters." Cale nodded, understanding more than ever that survival was more than a battle. It was a lesson in courage, in loyalty, and in heart. He had watched the galaxy ignore their cries, abandon them to death. But the humans had come, teaching them what it truly meant to live, to endure, and to fight for life itself. For the first time in months, Cale felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. It was fragile, yes, and earned through fire and blood. But with the humans at their side, Lithera might survive. And Cale understood a truth that would stay with him forever. The galaxy might abandon them, but humanity never would. The days of fear and despair were not over, But Lithra's skies began to feel different. The humans had changed the rhythm of the war. Where once the raiders ruled the night and burned cities without mercy, now the humans struck with deadly precision. They were everywhere, on the ground, in the forests, even in the skies. The Litherans began to see that the tide of battle could change. Kale moved alongside them, his heart pounding as he watched human soldiers lead squads of Litherans into the enemy camps. Explosions ripped through the air, yet the humans remained calm. Every step was calculated, every attack coordinated. They did not hesitate, they did not falter, and with them Kale realized his people could move from desperation to hope. In the forest, the humans taught the Litherans to use the environment. They climbed trees silently to scout enemy positions. They dug trenches that could hold against the raiders' most vicious assaults. Kale's soldiers learned quickly, following the humans' silent commands, and slowly, they began to feel the taste of victory. The first major victory came at the Vera Plains, where the raiders had built a massive camp filled with beasts and machines designed to kill. Kale's heart raced as the humans advanced first. They moved like a storm, crushing raider lines, rescuing prisoners, and shielding the Litherans at every step. The raiders had thought Lithra was an easy target. They had not counted on the Deathworlders. Kale watched a human soldier lift a massive beast with one arm, throwing it aside like it weighed nothing. Another dragged an injured Litheran from the battlefield while fending off enemies with his glowing blade. Every move was terrifying and awe-inspiring. Kale realized that these humans were not just fighters. They were legends living in the flesh. The Litherans fought alongside them, their fear slowly transforming into courage. Each human victory inspired them, teaching them that even in impossible odds they could survive. Civilians began to help too, providing food, repairing weapons, and hiding the wounded. Lithra's people were learning to fight and endure, led by the humans who knew no limits. But the raiders were clever. They adapted, changing their tactics, ending swarms of creatures that moved faster, struck harder, and killed with more precision. The humans did not falter. They fought not only to kill the enemy, but to teach the Litherans to adapt, to survive, to see patterns where chaos reigned. Kale realized that victory was not about defeating the raiders once. It was about changing his people, so they could fight again and again, no matter the odds. One night, as Kale sat near a fire with a human commander, he asked, "Why do you keep coming back? You could leave. You could go anywhere in the galaxy. Why Lithra?" The commander's eyes were tired, but there was a strange fire in them. "Because someone has to," he said simply. "Because if we don't fight, if we don't survive, then who will? The galaxy does not care." "We do." Kale felt the weight of those words. The humans fought not for glory or recognition, but because they understood what it meant to survive and protect others. They had seen worlds abandoned, civilizations destroyed, and yet they chose to act. Every death they prevented, every life they saved was proof of something greater than war. It was proof of humanity. Over the following weeks, the battles intensified. Litheran cities were slowly rebuilt as humans and survivors cleared rubble, set traps, and fortified defenses. Civilians once paralyzed by fear now worked alongside the soldiers, inspired by the humans' courage. Cal noticed a change in his own heart. He had seen despair, horror, and loss, but he had also seen hope, strength, and determination. The final turning point came when the raiders launched a massive fleet toward Lithra. It was the largest assault yet, designed to crush everything. Kale stood on a ridge with the humans, staring at the black shapes in the sky. Fear tried to creep back, but the humans were steady, calm, prepared. The commander turned to him. "Stay alive. Protect your people." "We handle the storm," Kale nodded. He realized then that victory was not guaranteed. But with these humans leading the way, with their strength, skill, and unwavering will, the Litherans could face the impossible and survive. And as the first human strike ships descended on the raider fleet, tearing it apart with deadly precision, Kale understood something he had never known before. Hope could be stronger than fear, and humanity could turn despair into triumph. For the first time in months, Lithra's people could believe that they were not alone, that they were not forgotten. The galaxy may have abandoned them, but humanity had arrived, and with them the tide of battle had truly turned. The raiders had regrouped. Their final strike was coming, larger and more ruthless than anything Lithra had faced. Swarms of monstrous creatures filled the skies and forests, weapons of destruction raining fire down upon the cities. Panic threatened to take hold, but Kyle felt something he had not felt in months: determination. Humanity was here. The Deathworlders would not allow Lithera to fall. The humans moved like shadows before the enemy. Their armor reflected the explosions and fire, their weapons cutting through the raiders with deadly precision. Kyle followed closely, his heart pounding, adrenaline driving him forward. Civilians scrambled behind, guided by humans who had already mapped out safe routes, traps, and escape points. Kyle watched in awe as a human soldier raised a glowing blade and held off a massive predator, shrugging off wounds that would have killed anyone else. Another human lifted a fallen Litheran child from the rubble, while fending off two raiders with one hand and firing a pulse rifle with the other. Every movement, every action was terrifying and beautiful at the same time, a perfect mixture of raw power and unwavering purpose. The Litherans, inspired by the humans' courage, fought with a bravery they had never known. Kale directed squads through the ruins, setting traps and luring raiders into ambushes taught to them by the Deathworlders. Each victory came at a cost, each rescue at a price, but slowly, the tide began to turn. Hours passed, the battle raging through day and night. The humans did not falter. Even as exhaustion and injuries took their toll, Kyle saw soldiers patching their own wounds between fights, loading rifles with hands that bled, their faces smeared with soot and sweat, yet their eyes unyielding. They were not invincible, but they would not stop. They were driven by something Kale could barely understand, yet felt deep in his chest, a refusal to let the innocent die. In one of the central cities, the raiders had cornered a group of civilians, using them as bait. Kyle froze, fear threatening to overwhelm him. Then the humans arrived. They tore through the enemy lines, shielding the civilians, cutting a path of survival through impossible odds. Kale followed, heart pounding, lifting a fallen Litheran soldier to safety while the humans pressed on. When the fight finally ended, silence fell, thick, heavy, almost unbelievable. The raider forces were crushed, scattered, or dead. Smoke rose from the battlefields, and the cries of the injured mixed with the low groans of those mourning. Kale sank to his knees, exhausted, surrounded by ruins. A human commander approached, his armor scratched, his face tired yet calm. He laid a hand on Kale's shoulder. "You survived," he said quietly. "Your people survived. That is what matters." Kyle's eyes filled with tears. He had seen his city burn, watched friends die, faced monsters he had never imagined. But now he also saw hope, alive and burning brighter than the fires around him. Humanity had come when the galaxy had turned away. Humanity had shown him what it meant to survive, to endure, and to protect others no matter the cost. The Litherans began to rebuild immediately, guided by the humans. Children helped clean rubble, families helped fortify homes, and soldiers began training the next generation. But Kale noticed something deeper. The humans did not stay for praise or glory. They helped, they healed, they protected, and then they moved quietly, ready for the next world in need. Kyle walked through the streets, looking at the survivors. He saw fear replaced by determination, despair replaced by courage. His people were scarred, yes, but stronger. They had been taught not only how to fight, but how to endure, how to survive against impossible odds. And he knew deep in his heart that the galaxy would never again underestimate Lithera, not while humanity had shown the truth of survival. That night, under the stars, Kale stood with the human commander once more. The sounds of rebuilding drifted up from the city below. "Why do you help us?" Kale asked again, his voice shaking. The commander looked up at the sky, silent for a long moment. "Because someone has to," he said finally. "We fight because life is worth fighting for. That is all." Kale nodded, understanding fully now. Humanity's power was not just in weapons or strength, it was in heart, loyalty, and the courage to act when all hope seems lost. As dawn broke over Lithera, the first light touching the ruins of the cities, Kale realized that their survival was not the end. It was a beginning. The humans had arrived and changed everything. They had shown that even when the galaxy turns its back, hope can come from the most unexpected places. Lithera had been saved, not by fleets of the Council or distant allies, but by humans, the Deathworlders who thrived where others would die. And in their presence, Kale understood a truth he would never forget. Humanity was more than survival. It was a force that could inspire, protect and endure beyond the limits of any galaxy. The battle was over, but the cost was heavy. Lithera's cities lay in ruins, smoke rising from shattered streets, and the cries of the wounded filled the air. Survivors stumbled among the rubble, their clothes torn, their faces streaked with dirt and tears. Yet amidst the destruction, a strange, fragile sense of hope began to take root. The humans moved among them quietly, methodically. They carried the injured to makeshift hospitals, cleared streets of debris, and helped rebuild homes even as their own wounds went unhealed. Kale followed, stunned by the tireless energy and unwavering focus of the Deathworlders. Every act of mercy, every hand extended to help, was another lesson in what it truly meant to care. Kale found himself beside a human medic, watching her tend to a young child with burns across his arms. "Do you ever rest?" he asked, his voice trembling. She looked up, exhausted but calm. "Rest is for those who are safe. Right now they need us more than we need sleep." Kale nodded, feeling a weight in his chest. These humans did not seek reward. They did not demand thanks. They only acted because it was necessary. And in their presence, Kale realized that survival was not merely living. It was saving others while standing in the face of unimaginable danger. The Litherans began to help too. Inspired by the humans' relentless care, civilians carried water to hospitals, repaired buildings, and tended to the wounded. Soldiers trained under the humans' watchful eyes, learning not just to fight but to protect. Kyle noticed a shift in his people. They were no longer afraid. They were determined. Every action was guided by purpose, every effort by hope. One night, Kale walked through the remains of a city square. The humans had set up temporary shelters and medical stations. Children were laughing softly for the first time in weeks, playing among the ruins under the watchful eyes of human soldiers. Kale felt tears prick at his eyes. These people, his people, had endured horrors he thought impossible. And yet they were still alive, still hopeful. He approached the human commander who had been quietly supervising the rebuilding. "Why do you do all this?" Kale asked. "You risked your lives, you bled, and yet you still help us rebuild." The commander's eyes, tired and lined with scars, met Kale's. "Because someone must. Because life is worth it. The galaxy may forget, may turn away, but we do not. We fight, we protect, we survive, not for glory, but because it is the right thing to do." Kale felt the truth of those words settle in his heart. Humanity had not only saved Lithera, they had given them something far greater than victory over the raiders. They had given them hope, courage, and the will to endure. Over the following weeks, Lithera slowly began to rebuild. The humans remained, quietly guiding, repairing, and teaching. They did not demand leadership, nor did they ask for recognition. They simply acted as they always had, a force of nature born from worlds that demanded strength. Kale walked among his people, seeing them work together with determination. Soldiers who had once trembled at the raiders' shadow now stood tall, teaching younger generations. Civilians who had fled in fear now carried supplies, repaired shelters, and comforted the wounded. And everywhere, Kale could see the imprint of humanity's presence. Discipline, courage, and compassion forged in fire. One evening, Kale sat with the human medic by the river, watching the sun set over the recovering city. The water reflected the red and gold of the sky, and for a moment everything felt calm. "You saved us," Kale said softly. "All of us." The medic smiled faintly, exhaustion shadowing her face. "We only do what we must. You are survivors. You will carry this forward." That is the real gift, Kale understood. Humanity's gift was not just survival. It was the knowledge, the courage, and the determination to continue, to protect, and to endure. They had not only fought for Lithera, they had taught them to fight for themselves. As night fell, Kale looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other worlds would cry for help. And somewhere out there, humans, the Deathworlders, would answer. They did not seek glory. They did not ask for thanks. They simply came because someone had to, because life itself was worth saving. Kale's heart swelled with gratitude and understanding. The galaxy may have abandoned them, but humanity's presence had shown him a truth stronger than any weapon. Hope can survive even in the darkest nights, and courage can rise where despair once ruled. And in that truth, Kale knew that Lithera's people, scarred but alive, would endure. They would rebuild. They would survive. And they would never forget the gift humanity had given them, the gift of life, hope, and the courage to face the impossible. Months passed since the raiders were defeated, but Lithra still bore the scars of war. Cities were slowly being rebuilt, forests regrowing where fire had ravaged the land, and the people were learning to live again. Yet the most profound change was not in the streets or buildings. It was in the hearts of the Litherans. Courage, hope, and determination had returned, tempered by the lessons of survival taught by humanity. Kyle walked through a recovering city, observing his people. Soldiers trained with newfound skill, civilians worked together to repair shelters, and children laughed softly among the ruins. Everywhere the presence of the humans, the Deathworlders, could be felt. They had left an indelible mark, teaching Lithra not only to survive but to thrive in the face of adversity. The humans, however, were preparing to leave. Their ships, dark and jagged, waited silently at the edge of the rebuilt city. They did not linger for thanks or celebration. They had done what was necessary, saved lives, and now the next world called for their aid. Kale's heart tightened as he approached the human commander, who had become a figure of both fear and admiration to him. "You are leaving?" Kyle asked, his voice tinged with sadness. The commander nodded, his face calm yet carrying the weight of countless battles. "Our work is never finished. Other worlds will cry for help and we will answer. But your people, your world is strong now. You can survive on your own." Kale swallowed hard. He remembered the despair of the early days, when the galaxy had turned its back and hope had seemed impossible. Now standing here, he understood something profound. The humans had given Lithra more than weapons or strategy. They had given them the courage to face the future without fear. As the humans boarded their ships, Kale felt a mix of gratitude, sorrow, and awe. He wanted to thank them, to offer something in return, but words felt small compared to the gift they had given. One of the human soldiers, a medic who had spent weeks caring for the wounded, stepped forward. She looked at Kale with a faint smile. "Remember," she said softly, "hope is strongest when you carry it yourself. We helped you survive. Now it's your turn to protect each other." Kyle nodded, understanding fully. The humans had not come to create dependence. They had come to ignite strength. And now that spark burned brightly in every Lithran heart. The ships lifted off silently, their engines humming as they disappeared into the night sky. Kale watched until they were gone, feeling a strange emptiness mixed with hope. Humanity had come, fought, bled, and healed. They had shown Lithra what survival truly meant, and now it was up to the Litherans to carry that legacy forward. Days turned into weeks, and Lithra continued to rebuild. Kyle led his people with a newfound determination, teaching the lessons he had learned from the humans. Soldiers trained with discipline, civilians organized defense and supply lines, and children were taught how to recognize danger and act with courage. The planet, once abandoned and broken, was alive again, not only with life but with resilience. Kyle often found himself looking at the stars at night, remembering the humans who had appeared like legends in the darkest hour. He knew other worlds would face similar threats, and he knew humanity would answer. They always did. Not for reward, not for fame, but because life itself was worth defending. And in that realization, Kale understood something deeper than strategy or battle. The galaxy could abandon the innocent. Civilizations could be left to die and empires could turn away, but humanity would not. Where others failed, humans stood as a force of survival, courage, and hope. One evening, as the twin moons of Lithra rose over the rebuilt city, Kale gathered his people. "We were abandoned by the galaxy," he said, his voice steady and strong. "But we were not abandoned by humanity. They showed us how to survive, how to fight, and how to protect each other. And now it is our turn to honor their gift, to protect our world, and to face the future with courage." The people of Lithra listened, their faces lit with hope and determination. They had seen despair, horror, and loss. They had lived through fire, monsters, and the cold indifference of the galaxy. But now, with humanity's lessons etched in their hearts, they felt unbreakable. Kale looked up at the stars, a quiet smile forming on his face. Somewhere out there, humans were answering another call, saving another world, fighting another impossible battle. And that knowledge filled him with peace. Humanity had come when no one else would, and their legacy would live on in the hearts of those they had saved. Lithra had survived. Its people had survived. And through the courage, wisdom, and selfless strength of the Deathworlders, hope had been reborn. For the first time in generations, Kale believed not only in survival, but in a future worth fighting for. The galaxy could turn away, threats could rise, and worlds could fall, but humanity, the Deathworlders, would always be there to answer the call. And in that truth, the people of Lithera found their greatest gift, a hope that would never die.